Mr. President, the United States Constitution begins "We the people." The Declaration of Independence tells us we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Yet at the time this was being said, they didn't mean my grandmother, grandfather, mother, nor me. At the time the word "we" was being used, the country was divided into two groups of people. One group who were still in fact considered slaves and 3/5 of a human being.
Mr. President, I watched the day of your inauguration speech as you stood on the landing of the U.S. Capitol and took your oath. I looked upon the background, high above you, and gazed up at the statue atop the Capitol building, a statue which represented the symbol of freedom, yet was designed and built by a slave named Philip Reed, who at the time of helping mold this symbol of America's freedom was not even himself free. There have been many times that people have had to assume that they were a part of this great American history when they actually were not.
Mr. President, you have Jay-Z on your iPod. Daily, I see many very young males walking around with spiritual iPods that are playing in their hearts the words of the notorious B.I.G., saying you're nobody till somebody kills you. Yet two things are clear. Sadly, Biggie did become bigger in death, and that many of these kids who have never seen their families together during a Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner meet them for the first time in a casket with their eyes closed at a funeral. In your inaugural speech, you say what is required of us now is a new era of responsibility, a recognition on the part of every American that we have duties to ourselves, our nation, and the world. Does that us mean me? Does that duty of we include those who are born into shackles of poverty, incarceration, or, as your predecessor said, the soft bigotry of low expectations?
Mr. President, as many focus on the budget today and talk about what will be taken from a generation decades from now if the American debt isn't taken care of, someone should say that the generation theft is not just inheriting a financial debt, but leaving a generation without even the hope of being part of their own society.
So I ask you, Mr. President, who is responsible for providing these tools of responsibility? We need to change the spirit of death growing behind these walls and in these streets. Where is the will of those in charge to see this change? I'm only asking that you also take presidency over this oftentimes hidden society and require its leadership with authority, that if they can't get us fully prepared for a free society, that they at least be required to give us, in the words of Stevie Wonder, just enough for the city, because the spirit of death is behind barbed wire walls and on our inner city streets.
Mr. President, when you say all deserve to pursue their full measure of happiness, did you also mean those who strive to change while incarcerated? When you say what is required of us now is a new era of responsibility, recognition on the part of every American that we have duties to ourselves, our nation, the world, did that mean me? Does that mean those around me, the superintendent of my prison? And if it does, when will you make that clear? To those who are being held in the distant woods across this country, who may not even know we exist, who feel they lack any proof that finally the we and the us actually means us.
Mr. President, Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "All I'm asking of America is to be true to what you said on paper." On behalf of my children, grandchildren, family, and the family of those around me who will inherit the spirit of what we leave behind, I am now asking you to ensure this country, its government, and yourself will be true to what you said on paper, so that even those incarcerated behind walls of brick or within the prisons of their own minds, and those responsible for holding us, can get on the right side of history and leave these prisons and come home with hope and the feeling of nation.